Hello there folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel, a place where I discuss on different topics like spirituality, introspection, dream interpretation and other topics like for example RPG Maker, game design, at rare times game development with the simple scripts of RPG Maker. I'm still thinking about C# and placing a great order on Unity books from Amazon, but I'm still having a lot of work to do on my video games that I'm doing in RPG Maker, so until Unity I'm still thinking about that. The topic of today is gonna be video games. I made another video a while ago entitled How to Be a Fully Fledged Gamer, and though lengthy, it actually explains how to be a good gamer, and not only on playing video games but also playing the most important video game, that of real life itself. Okay, now the topic of this video is the dark side of video games, and yes, this might sound a bit spooky, but let's not get awkward feelings. Okay, the way I want to present things as much as possible is from a neutral standpoint, without any positivity or negativity aimed toward things, because it's not serving me anything. I don't gain anything if I make positive or negative remarks and feedback on something, or if I do them, at least I present them from a neutral standpoint. Now, the point about video games that most likely most people won't understand, and unfortunately, or well, to a certain extent fortunately, many games actually work on this principle, especially MMORPGs, and we kind of like RPGs and MMOs especially, and this one is called the dopamine rush. Okay, now this is probably gonna sound superficial for many people, but it's actually something that affects most players at a deeper level, because the dopamine rush is actually what causes one of the sources of your feeling very bad, very hyperactive and very distracted. Okay, now the dopamine is a hormone that your brain creates when, or let's say secretes, when you have a sense of success, a sense of achieving something. Now the point with online games, and especially with that hyperly aggressive day by day repeat, right, the daily quests, the daily such, right, these things actually prove as somewhat damaging to your brain, because they are meant through this repetitivity to ensure the dopamine that the brain is dependent upon. Now if you want to imagine this life, okay, as is, it is indeed a video game. Okay, now the purpose of the brain is to find, the brain is actually the character, right, you are technically the brain, and your purpose is to find the dopamine, right, the oxytocin and all these hormones of joy, because we all came in this world to experience joy at all possible levels: psychological, mental, spiritual. But we kind of have been shaped by society and very emotistical parents, and all sorts of people who haven't gotten to achieve much in life, and we've been very shaped by such people into believing that suffering is the only way, and we don't have any other possibility than suffering, right, and if you suffer, someone's gonna magically pop up into your life. Now all the suffering that we empathically take, especially when we are children, we take from our parents, right, and from other children, right, because many situations parents give birth to children, but they don't necessarily want those children. So this is another problem, because parents who don't want those children will have children just because their other neighbors say so, right, or their parents taught them that you come into this world to make children, right, and children should only be given birth when you feel ready, right, but many people just they don't know the other person, they just have a quick fuck, and well, suddenly the girl may remain pregnant, and it's kind of a sin, or so it's considered, to give up the child, and therefore this is one of the cases in which some people end up with a child that they kind of don't want, and you can imagine from here the kind of impact that will have on the child, right? And well, society has spent a huge amount of resources on the military field and genetics and such, but there has been little to no investment in how to find the truth within ourselves, right? How to become introspective, and we kind of end up with having hyperactive children, which makes them very prone to taking a lot of negativity from others, because when you're hyperactive you're prone to listen to everything, and when you listen to everything you actually pay attention to that, and you have therefore great chances of actually imbibing yourself with that which you listen to, right? Where your attention goes, energy flows, right? That is why the people you listen to and the people you take advice from, you have to take great care, because you will tend more or less in time to become like those people. So just a little tip: don't take advice about getting rich from people who are poor, right? So all this negativity, right, definitely makes children and adolescents kind of reject and hate this life as is, right? Because let's face it, the rates of suicide have increased, and now with the cunt virus they have increased again. Who knows if there's gonna be another lockdown? Most likely in September, October there may be another one, and you can actually imagine the amount of anxiety and stress that will be triggered within such people, right? There will be a lot of suffering. Now the point about this is also the reason why so many people are coming into this world, because they are paying a huge debt, right, of the karmic debt that humanity has, right? We have butchered and slaughtered not only people but also animals and wildlife as well, trees, and not only. So the point about this is all taking a toll, okay, and until a certain point. Now with society crumbling, because there's barely anything left, like there are barely any governments left, and society might look as if it's still holding, but things are never ever gonna come back to how they were. The point about this is many people will actually become fond of video games, and especially with another lockdown, it's like, okay, give me all the video games you can, right? And the more time people spend on video games, the more dopamine they actually get, and the more dopamine they get, the more addicted they become to that. Now the problem of an addiction is the addiction hits when the brain gets to secrete even a tiny amount of dopamine, okay? It's called dopamine intoxication. This example is not the only one, unfortunately. Not only video games do that, but also caffeine, okay? Coffee gives, through its sugar, gives a lot of this dopamine. It's like a great achievement to the brain, because in the end it doesn't matter what you do, it matters what the brain perceives it as, because everything is like in programming. All this world is nothing else than a programming, and if you learn how to understand the program, then you get a lot of insight in how to do things even better. If you're a programmer, or if you're not, then I'm gonna tell you, in programming it doesn't matter what your logic is, okay? You have to convert your logic into the logic of the machine, because the machine won't understand your logic. It's not meant to understand your logic, it's meant to understand a certain logic of its own. So unless you do that, right, you're gonna have some slight problem, okay? You're gonna have a lot of difficulty probably understanding different things. Now with video games, not all of those are like this. Usually single player games aren't much like that, because once you finish them it's like that's it, right? But online games are becoming more and more aggressive with this, and well, in the next few years gaming in general will be even more of a thing. So if you are dreaming of becoming a video game streamer, now is the time. Imagine another lockdown kicking in, right? Imagine how many people would actually play video games, and how many guides people may actually want to seek, right? So it would be a very good time to actually start creating your own YouTube account on this. Now I want to present not that much on my own video games, because I don't want to spoil too much about this one that I'm currently almost finishing, and I just don't want to spoil about it. Okay, so all these being said, the point about video games, okay, is that they create this dopamine rush. Okay, now this this dopamine rush is similar to the sugar rush. Okay, it is like a drug. That is why many people become dependent. And if you don't believe me, look at the World of Warcraft experiment, right? Many people lost jobs, many people broke families because they couldn't contain that dopamine rush. Okay, it's not the fault of the games. There is nothing evil behind the game itself. Okay, yes, the psychology behind it can be really devious, right? Can be quite horrible at times, especially with a lot of games and mobile games usually pushing so aggressively their microtransactions. But the point about that is, there is nothing wrong about this, but because of the dopamine, right, many people don't act correctly, right? They don't act accordingly because the dopamine rush makes you very much less capable of handling such a thing, right? So all these being said, it would be very good if you learn how to play video games in such a way that you don't attribute any importance to literally anything. Okay, because video games can make you, okay, they don't force you, but your mind is programmed by your parents and by school and by everything that you suck. And every time you get even the slightest amount of things done well, your brain actually rejoices and produces dopamine. In video games you get a lot of things like that. For example, take World of Warcraft or any other game, okay, not this one. Like, I don't want people to understand that World of Warcraft would be a culprit or something, but there's always something in these games, especially at the beginning when they're still hooking you up, right? There are all these things like you level up very fast at the beginning. Black Desert Online and Asian games, usually they have this aspect. You level up very fast at the beginning and then it's kind of tedious by the end. Like tedious by the end, Aura Kingdom, for example. I played that game a while, but actually I played it a lot. I mean, I didn't play it too long a time, but I played it a lot during those days, usually 8-10 hours probably, something like that, and per day. And you see, the point about this is they hook you with a lot of these dopamine rushes, okay, a lot of false senses of achievements, because you're doing nothing else than allowing some pixels to congratulate you, because everything that you see there is just pixels. Okay, they're just pixels on your screen. All the importance and everything there, you are just giving it that importance, right? And you're doing this just because of survival. Okay, it's nothing else than a survival mechanism. Now you might say that playing video games, in like 99% of the gamers, okay, it doesn't put a meal on their plate, because most players don't play games for money, right? Like becoming super famous streamers that actually get paid for that, right? It's just low self-esteem, right? And low self-esteem means that you have created a lot of stories that keep you at that low vibration, and all those stories actually gave birth to a lot of facets, okay, a lot of personalities. Now, what is a personality? The word personality in English stems from the Latin persona, which means a mask. And well, how very surprising, a mask is nothing else than what people have been wearing throughout the time, right? I'm pointing also towards the mask of nowadays, the coronavirus mask, because it's nothing else than another mockery addressed towards us, because that's how some forces want to guide us towards our enlightenment. Okay, let's not dive into constipational theories and dark societies wanting to destroy humanity. If they wanted, most likely they could have achieved that much easier. Okay, now without further ado, this is kind of what I wanted to tell you. Okay, this dopamine rush is very dangerous, but the fundamental part of this, the structure of this, is, well, nothing else than your way of reacting to certain things, because that is what your emotions are. You have certain stories about certain situations, and when those situations occur, or when you have the impression that they occur, namely they don't necessarily occur but you have an impression or something very similar to those situations occur, not only do you have an impression, or 90% of the situations a false deja vu impression, but you can also end up reacting to that, right? And you will hate on something, you will generalize, you will do a lot of things that should actually instead be used as self-diagnosis. Every time you react to something, ask yourself why you react to it, because the reason why you react to that is because you've taken a story. Most likely you've taken it from your parents, school, I don't know, other children, other adolescents, friends, whatever, right? Most of the stories don't even belong to us, but unfortunately we're not aware of them. We take them and we kind of nurture them. One of the reasons why your life is not very happy, because these stories are nothing else than victimizations, okay? And all this victimization is nothing else than a survival instinct of these masks of yours, okay? These masks, okay, these personas, okay? A persona was a mask that, in the ancient theaters and the medieval times as well, people would put different masks on their face to represent certain gods, deities, or whatever other beings, right? Fantastical creatures, and they also had some costumes, right? And they would act as that respective character. And well, it was adopted in time for the term of a face mask, right? The mask that most people put because you are creating certain impressions, right? No one can actually force you to do things. They can just lower your self-impression, right, until a point where you give them your power. If your parents oblige you to do a certain thing, like for example vaccination or anything that you as a person simply don't want to, it's still you who accepts that. You're accepting that because you're consciously agreeing to the pressure that other people are putting on you, right? It's all a matter of that, right? It's all a matter of the amount of pressure that you can hold. And when you feel that that limit has been bypassed, usually you will agree and give other people your power. The same thing happens with video games, right? They always create the pressure on you, but a very simple point that they give these dopamine rushes, right? You give in very easily to those because the dopamine rush is very hard to contain, right? Now, does this mean you shouldn't actually ever play video games again? Well, from a spiritual standpoint and a psychological standpoint, you can always play video games, but you have to understand how to reach a certain level of mindfulness, okay? Now, mindfulness means being so knowledgeable of all the thoughts and ideas that go through your mind, and most importantly, the fact that these things are most likely not even yours, okay? So when you reach a certain level that you go beyond this survival instinct of your personas, right, of those face masks that you have, right, because it's technically just a lie. That is why you're feeling depressed, right? Because depression occurs when you're doing things that stray you away from your authenticity, right? Like lying in most people's cases. And I say most because there are some people who authenticity is represented by lying. This is something that some sources or most sources may not necessarily tell, or they might actually say indirectly, and people may not actually expect it or understand or whatever. So all this being said, the point is learn how to accept things from a mindful perspective, okay? Learn how to see things from a perspective in which they don't influence you and they don't impact you, right? Like, you may actually hear me from time to time saying I can't care, okay? It's a whole different mechanic than I don't care, because not caring is something active. The inability to care is something tending a lot towards passivity, right? It's something that follows the premise of smoker and non-smoker, right? When someone is not a smoker, for example, or someone like me, I don't drink coffee, right? I don't need coffee. And I found out very, very early, years after years, okay, that coffee is actually very harmful due to, again, this dopamine rush, okay, and it's one of the reasons why people feel so sluggish and hyperactive at the same time. It's a symptom, one of the symptoms of dopamine infectation, right? Infection, whatever you want to call it. It's actually called, dopamine toxification, intoxication. I heard it in multiple ways, okay? So I simply didn't want coffee. I never liked it. When I was young, my father would give me, one of those, the unprocessed thing, those bits, right? Um, I don't know how they're called in English. Before you turn them into the dust that it looks like dust, right? When after you grind it, and it looks like dust, and you put it into water, and voila, you have the $50 expensive coffee that Starbucks sells it for like $10 or something like that. Okay, so that's technically not the coffee itself. Coffee itself is a bit more intricate, but I'm not gonna dive into this subject because I know very little to nothing actually. So the point about this is, to me, coffee doesn't exist, okay? I may see it in the supermarkets, but it doesn't exist in my mind. I don't have the slightest intention, I don't have the slightest need to drink coffee. Just like at the same time, I don't smoke. Being a non-smoker, the necessity and the thought for cigars doesn't even exist in my mind. I don't have any temptation, I don't have any, there is no feeling towards those, right? That is how the non-smoker principle actually works, right? And arranging your mind and adapting your mind to the point that, I play a video game and whatever happens, it happens, okay? Just like I'm trying in some of the videos where I play Heroes of the Storm and I post them on my channel. I'm gonna make a few soon, and it's exactly the same principle. Irrespective of what happens, how much people swear at me, you can see on my channel I have a few videos in which I have trolls. I have a few, I think one or two, where people swear at me. Okay, let them do that. I cannot care because, well, I have to do my own job, right? I play with a certain character and I have to do my purpose so that I ensure the team enough experience and value. I may get angry, but really, really rarely, right? Once in a few games, I think. But again, it all matters, right? It all matters on yourself. So all this being said, take care. You are loved and appreciated. Hopefully you like this type of content that I'm creating and I'm gonna keep up doing. Feel free to actually provide your questions, your opinions. If you have questions about spirituality, feel free to ask me. Don't ask me about specific deities or things that I may not know, okay? Dream interpretation, I can actually do videos on that, and I rarely do. I from time to time watch Quora questions and I pick a few of those, like one, and answer it at sometimes, probably one day or two. I might be unable because of time to create some videos, but I will actually create in other times. All this being said, take care of yourselves and your loved ones. You are loved and appreciated. Whatever you are doing is the best you can at the right pace for you, so don't rush things because it's never worth it. I've learned that myself, and well, keep up the good work in the end. Ferenc Janpor signing out.